Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and here I am at 20 Queen Anne Gate in London. And behind me you can see the house where Viscount Palmerston once resided. So who was Viscount Palmerston? Well, he was Prime Minister more than once in the mid-19th century. He was a Whig and latterly a Liberal. So his surname was actually Temple, and his aristocratic title, Palmerston, relates to a place in Dublin, still called Palmerston, because noble titles usually relate to a place. They are normally not the surname of the family. Anyway, so he went to Harrow and Cambridge, was elected an MP for a constituency his family effectively controlled well before the Great Reform Act of 1832, because in those days only about 5% of men were permitted to vote, those who owned substantial real property. But the rules for just how much property they had to own, or sometimes rent, varied from one constituency to the next, because the medieval legislation would say in Latin that the best men shall choose from amongst themselves 2 knights from each shire and 2 burghers from each borough. A burgher not being something that you eat, but a B-U-R-G-H-E-R, as in like a town councillor. Sometimes it was the town council elected them, and on and on. Anyway, so he wanted some reform in the early 19th century. He was a Whig, and the other main political party were called Tories. So he wanted to advance the cause of liberty in other countries, which didn't mean full democracy or usually republicanism, but like constitutional monarchy. He believed there should be some sort of ethics in foreign policy. But he was a very wise owl. He had a hard-headed and realistic view of the world. He's best known as a foreign policy Prime Minister, and notably he led the United Kingdom in the Crimean War, 1853 to 56. The other luminary of the Whig Party at the time was the Earl of Aberdeen, who was Prime Minister at the beginning of this. Viscount Palmerston had been the Foreign Secretary for quite some time. Anyway, he helped to found the Liberal Party in 1861, shortly before he died. That was over in St James's. One of the few things that the Liberals could agree on was Italian unification and independence. Remember, back then Italy was divided into 24 states, mostly city-states, a few kingdoms. Obviously the Papal States, ruled by the Pope, occupied central Italy. The northern Italian states were under the sway of Austria. So il risorgimento, the resurgence of Italy, was underway at that time. In 1861, this was largely achieved with the blessing of the Liberal Party. That was their sort of liberalism, supporting nationalism up to a point. However, he set his face against Home Rule for Ireland, or prior to that, repeal of the Act of Union in relation to Ireland. So what else can I say? Well, he was quite a ladies' man. He was the last Prime Minister to sire a child whilst in Downing Street, until Tony Blair came along and his son Leo was born in 2000. Well, Viscount Palmerston, largely overlooked now. People tend to consider it rather bland 19th century politics, and he saw no contradiction between being a liberal and an imperialist. Felt that the United Kingdom was assisting progress in all regions of the world. So you can see the other house of his, which is on the other side of St James's Park and Green Park, which hasn't been occupied for decades and is somewhat in rack and ruin. It was bought almost 20 years ago, or in and out on the outer doors. Well, that's that Viscount Palmerston, a fascinating figure, well worth finding out about.